So we're now 2 episodes into this reboot reimagining of this classic anime and manga series. And I have to say, 2 episodes in, I already think the duo that is Lum, who is considered to be one of the original waifus, you know, people just, this is their girl from back in the day, and to see her in this new quality anime, I mean, people are understandably excited, and I think for new fans, myself included, like, she's awesome. She's violent and chaotic, but she is amazing, and I understand the appeal. And then you have our MC scumbag, Adoru, who just, I love it because, as I said in my first episode's review and first impressions, it's very much like a sitcom in a lot of ways. It's an alien comes from outer space, you kind of get married, engaged, a weird situation, classic anime direction of basically Looney Tunes if it was even more violent than it already was back in the day. And I love the fact that for this pairing, you know eventually the man's probably not going to push her away quite as hard, but there's always going to be that level of the fact that a lot of his personality, from the grabby hands to a lot of what he says, he has ever watched a single sitcom, there's always at least one character who may not be the best. And that's what makes, I think, this couple that is so fake at face value, but there's so opposite attitudes, that I truly think they are probably the craziest and most interesting duo that this anime season has to offer. 2 episodes in, and they left a very positive impression. Version that David Production's doing. First season, we're getting 2 cores back to back, and then I'm not sure if it'll be like a split core where they'll come back for it with another couple, or if it'll be maybe a year wait. We know we're getting 4 cores though, and because it's a very long manga, I heard based on what, since it is a little more episodic and since it is more situational events, they can just pick and choose chapters to adapt and give us an anime, and I think that's perfectly acceptable. Of course, I'm sure most people would say, no, I wish we got 200 episodes to adapt everything like the original, but okay. And because it is situational, there's always the potential you could do more and come back to other chapters and things like that, right? But I like the concept of this show. I think it's very fun. It's something you don't see a lot of in anime. You see it a lot in Western television and a lot of shows outside of Japan, in my opinion. It's very much a sitcom. That's really what it feels like, but with an 80s, 90s animation direction kind of choice, but with a modern color palette. And I really wish we had more shows like these because this is right up my alley. I love this type of, a lot of womanizer MCs, and when you do, they don't get beat down quite as hard as this man is, because really, Adoru's not anyone to really write home about at face value of what we've seen. He's a pretty average guy with maybe far too perverted personality, and these types of characters really don't deserve to have that harem that they think they want. More so, if they get there, they need to develop to that. Known each other for years, right? I mean, Shinobu is rightfully upset because from her point of view, hell, even the viewer's point of view half the time, it looks like this man is really leading everyone on, but you understand the chaos and the misunderstanding. But from her point of view, I mean, you know, we're gonna get married and now you're marrying a goddamn alien who electrocutes anyone who gets near you, right? And then you have your very misunderstood wife, all things considered, who looks at everything you're doing as cheating after you grabbed her by the horns and said, I'm gonna marry you, babe. And I love the fact that, you know, it can just be random people on the side of the road or just, you know, people that get introduced, like in the case of Sakura in this episode. You know, this man, he's a creep, he's a weirdo, and I love him. Because I think this type of character, anytime an anime has this, because I think it's less common in anime than it is in a lot of sitcoms and a lot of Western media, you know, there's always someone with that, like, womanizer, perverted personality who doesn't necessarily win. A show like this so fun and so fresh and exciting, despite it being such an old series that they're adapting, is that when it comes to these types of characters, you get more of the socially awkward, I want to come face to face with them, they back off and shiver. Where if you're writing this character correctly, they have no morals in a lot of ways. They have no self-awareness that you can't say this shit in public without getting beat down. Half the stuff he wants to do would get him arrested in today's age, right? And I love the fact that they're not shying away from what makes this character archetype fun to follow in any show that actually knows what they're doing. So unlike a lot of these high school anime where, you know, they get embarrassment of moral high points, and he's going to have points of very low moral low points. That's what makes one, womanizer MCs aren't for everyone, and the love triangle that is this chaotic is not for everyone. But I like the fact that it is just, you know, it's a world that interests me. It's not often. It reminds me in a lot of ways of so many shows I've seen. I mean, there's a moment during the X Team Epic kind of influences, it feels like, but it just feels like you can tell this show this author's works, I keep seeing different series name dropped of like, damn, I really hope this work get quality production. I really feel like it's probably going to be pretty consistent even into next season when we get its second core. And the fact that it's not a back-to-back 4-core like originally it was kind of being presented as, but now we know for sure 2 cores, a break, another 2 cores, and it brings a grin to my face. It connects with my humor bone. I think the characters are very charming. I wasn't quite expecting Cherry not to be that mother. I thought Cherry was in a wig, and then turns out like there's just a lot of these like Cherry looking mofos in this show as you just have some insane moments, guys. Instead, Hot Nurse comes in immediately, he's like, can I get your digits? And I'm like, this man has no chill, but I love that because you don't see these archetypes at least done in this way enough in anime. I see it all the time in other mediums, and I love it when they're there. If it's only that archetype and no one else, it gets dry and boring rather fast, but there's a reality check that goes on with this man, and the misunderstood girlfriend, her ex-girlfriend, I guess I should say here, who definitely got the short end of the stick. It's just nice to see has her hands tied behind her back because he ties the ribbon and it negates her power, and then the misunderstanding because she's trying to electrocute someone to death, but they look at it as like a romantic confession. It's just great, man. I really enjoy it. I think it's pretty obvious based on how much I'm smiling, how much I'm enjoying talking about this one, and I really hope people will continue to enjoy the videos and enjoy this show alongside me so we can continue talking about it all the way to the end of this season, and hopefully we can talk about next season as well if the videos perform more, especially because I'm not a reaction channel, I'm a review channel, so there's a whole bunch of things that goes into it, so support does mean a lot, so do leave some if you did enjoy. Be sure to subscribe if you're new around here, see where it goes from here, because this show is a blast, but see you next time.